Okay, well, I kind of got to look at the crowd here, so I'm guessing that there's not going to be a lot of applause if I say, put your hands together if you're working parents.
Woo!
Yeah, didn't think so. Well, I have a lot of respect for stay-at-home parents also, but I didn't set out expecting that I was going to be this big working mom and this career woman. When I was playing with Barbies on the Malibu coast or whatever, I don't remember, or making my cakes in the Easy Bake Oven with a light bulb heater. I wasn't thinking, I want to have it all and have a big career and kids and all this stuff. And then, I had kids. And it's a lot of work. Like, a lot of work. So I went back to the office so I could relax and talk to like adults and make sure I showered a couple times a week. And having two working parents is like juggling flaming torches, which is like super fun until somebody gets sick. And then they all fall, and again, if there were any working parents here, you'd know the old trick of give them some Tylenol and send them to school when they got a fever and hope you can get through your morning meetings before they call and say, your kid has a fever, can you come pick them up? And then you're like, yeah, I'll be there as soon as I can, and hope that as soon as you can, we'll get you through the afternoon meetings before you actually go and pick up your kid. Yeah. See, my mother didn't understand any of this, like going back to work after you have kids. And she said, like, I bet you could actually save money if you stayed home full time because you wouldn't have to spend money on those business suits. You could just sit around all day in your sweatpants and you would save money. I'm like, oh, that's so like reaffirming and positive thinking. Who knew that 25 years later we'd all be sitting around in our sweatpants all day and working? Anyway, years later, we actually ended up moving to the Chicago area for a job that I got recruited for. And we didn't have any friends or family in this area, so when we're looking for community, I'm actually Jewish, so we looked for a community that had a high Jewish population. We didn't really know anything else about it. So when we moved here, we didn't, we'd already moved in and everything. We didn't realize that it was like such a higher level of wealth that the stay-at-home parents had stay-at-home parents. Like, they still had nannies and au pairs, which I didn't really understand. But we got to a point where my youngest son, it was time for him to go to afternoon Hebrew school. So he had to get from regular elementary school to Hebrew school, which was like a 10-minute walk on Wednesday afternoons. And so the first Wednesday, I was like, don't forget, you have to walk to Hebrew school today. Okay. He knew how to get there. We walked by his elementary school every Saturday on our way to synagogue, so he knew the way. And my older daughter used to do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but Wednesday was his day. So I go to pick him up at 6 o'clock, and the director said, oh, he never showed up today. I said, well, why didn't anybody call me? He's like, oh, we only call the parents when they've been missing more than a couple of days. And I was like, what? So I'm like frantic. So I finally was like, I don't even know where to go. I'll start with home. Thank God he was home, but he was like with an empty cracker box on the floor and a popsicle stick, and he's watching like Nickelodeon. And it was like the equivalent of a grown man, like, in his underwear, drinking a beer, watching the game with his hand in his pants. And then I was like, why didn't you go to Hebrew school? He said, I decided I'd had enough school for today. Like, how am I going to do this? So I called the director. He gave me all the names of the parents of the kids that were in both his elementary school and his after school. I call all the parents, and nobody even calls me back. Finally, one mom answers the phone because it was before caller ID, so she had to talk to me. And it turns out that the carpools had been figured out like in utero. I'm like, oh, we moved here when he was already in first grade, so there was no way I was getting into a carpool. So I was like, look, I just need to get him from elementary school to Hebrew school on Wednesdays at 4. I'll pick your kids up at 6. I'll take them both ways on Sunday, whatever else you need to do. And she goes, do you work? I thought she was throwing up into the phone. Yeah. So clearly that wasn't happening. My husband ended up finding a way to get the bus system to take them there, so thank God that worked, because I was traveling a lot, and I would travel sometimes to Vietnam and Philippines and China. I'd be gone 2-3 weeks at a time. I ended up one time, I think I was in the Philippines, when my daughter had her first period. And I found out like 10 years later that my husband took her down the Depends aisle in CVS. Thank God my daughter steered him down the right aisle, so at least I had to talk with her, but apparently I hadn't had to talk with him. There was another time when I was actually in the car. My daughter had like health class that day, and my youngest son was 8 years old at the time, so my daughter was 11. She goes, Mom, they were telling us in health class today that when a pretty girl walks by a boy, his penis gets bigger. and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to say to this? And my youngest son goes, well, yeah, it's called a boner. Oh, God, I guess my husband had to talk with him. And my oldest son once had an assignment in English class. He had to write a letter to his mom. It was around Mother's Day. And he said, Dear Mom, I know even when you're in China, you're checking my grades and letting me know when I didn't turn in an assignment, but I know it's just because you love me. So there's, I guess, a parenting win. So we just need to be kind to ourselves, no matter if you're a stay-at-home parent or working parent. As long as you're happy, the kids are going to be happy. So thank you. That's my time.